What's up, ATG fam? Part 2 of ACL Tear Simplified. In part 1, we talked about the Nordic giving protection for the ACL, but what about the ACL itself? We know from science and doctors that by restoring the full bend, we can actually create internal adaptation for our ACL. We can strengthen the ACL. So I actually still think this is the number one reason is that basketball players and people tearing their ACLs like crazy are doing all these lifts that avoid full bend. So every time you're doing your box squat or your hip thrust, you're creating a situation where you're adding more power that your ACL is not being strengthened for. So you're adding more external power, but what about the internal strength? Your ACL has strength. You can strengthen your ACL. So what I get athletes to do, well, first off, in Knee Ability Zero, really the entire goal of all 10 steps of Zero is just to restore full and pain-free bend, balanced one side at a time. If you have any questions on this, I have the most ATG split squat videos on earth by like 10 times. So go ahead and look at my other videos and you'll see exactly how it regresses. When I started this, I was nowhere near that, okay? And on average, people will get there in 12 weeks. People progress at different speeds. Then, when we do start squatting, we want the fullest squat possible. We're not even talking about deep or parallel. We're talking about full bend is where we see that you can get miraculous results inside your knee, not just for your tendons, but also for the ligaments themselves. And then when we load, we're not then loading away, we're loading here so that we have to get stronger through the knee. So this is how we start then squatting. And as I showed in part 1, we do then power up the hip. But without question, I think the avoidance of full bend, if you look at entire populations and ACL stats, decade after decade, the more we go away from full bend, the more we power up the external muscles without powering up the ligaments. Well, now we have more power, weaker ligaments, and we're actually manufacturing an epidemic of ACL tears.